Sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan. Rochester. An Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Oh, we're having a day. We are having a day. We welcome you into the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us. Thanks for listening along at 95.7 FM, AM 950. The free-to-download Odyssey app, our home online, also our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, where we stream live every afternoon from 3 until 6. I am Mike Danger. Over there, that's Gene Battaglia.
Would you ever consider doing this show at a different part of the day? For me, I think it's the best part of the day to talk sports because we're looking forward to tonight. We want to go back to last night. And then sometimes, hey, here's a big story that's going to drop into our lap like as we're getting on the air.
Yeah, well, the thing about doing the show in the afternoon or even in the midday is I think you do have to be able to be quick on your feet and think when something drops, how does this affect change? Why is this happening? And you have to be able to reason that in the moment, improvise a little bit as to why exactly this thing is happening. And I think that's why, sports talk radio in general, it's middays and afternoons that have the highest audience, the more people tuning in because you're reacting to what happened in the last 24 hours and you have things happening in the moment during the business day that you can react to as well. And you can also preview all of the action that you're probably going to get to tonight. We've got all of that in this afternoon show.
It's all bundled up.
Like I said, we are having a day. I mean, we could talk about the national championship last night, which now feels like old news. We're going to talk about what the Denver Nuggets did this afternoon. We're going to get caught up with the Rochester Americans. We're going to talk some Buffalo Bills as well. It's all lining up for you here in the sports bar. We're glad you're along for the ride. We'll talk to Amherst head coach Mike Leone at 4:25. And get a state of the team here. The team that is now playoff bound again for another season, Gino.
There are 2 weekends left in the Amherst season. So they are home tomorrow night, and they're going to be actually taking on Laval on Wednesday. So lots happening with the Amherst. We'll talk to the head coach here as can they track down Laval? If not, how does he feel his team is playing? I thought it was a kind of a mixed bag last week, Danger. You went to the game on Wednesday. They beat Belleville on Saturday. When the season have we said that was a no-show? The Amherst no-showed in Belleville on Friday. Good that they responded, but rather than put words in his mouth, let's listen to that coach and see what he has to say about the week that was and what's coming up here for his team.
Draft talk is intensifying in the NFL. The Buffalo Bills are obviously looking forward to round one. Brandon Beane has said as much at the NFL owners meetings last week that they're focused on the draft, and we're going to learn more about what went down at the NFL owners meetings and what direction they may be leaning here with pick 30, round one of the NFL draft coming up in, 16 days now, I want to say. Matt Perino covering the Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard will stop by as usual Tuesday afternoon time here at 3:25.
So I was over today, good sponsor of the show, On Track Auto Sales, shooting a video, right, for them. And Mike over there, who, by the way, if you go in and say Chuck Muncie discount, he'll give you the Chuck Muncie discount, mentions this to me. He's like, hey, are you guys going to talk about the Jordan Addison rumors? I'm like, huh? Jordan Addison rumors? Okay. Like, I didn't bring this up to you because I had that reaction. Like, what are you talking about, Jordan Addison rumors? I have to kind of look this up. All right, there's a bunch of Jordan Addison, wide receiver for the Minnesota Vikings, with him being kind of a 1B on that team to the Justin Jefferson 1A, and he's got some issues that maybe he will face some sort of league suspension. Will the Vikings just say, let's move on now, see what we can get rather than have to pay this guy someday? The long story short is like, wait a second, there's these Viking sites that are speculating that he could be traded to the Bills. Where's this coming from? And then I read one of these Viking sites. I'm like, oh, my gosh. They link over to a mailbag on Syracuse.com from our own Matt Perino when somebody just asked Matt Perino, hey, who are some guys that the Bills could do? And he's just speculating, and he makes that clear. Chris Olave from the Saints, maybe Jordan Addison.
Right.
Nothing more.
Right.
Nothing more. So this is like how the machine works. So when we have Matt on and be like, dude, I got asked today about a rumor that somehow is traced back to you.
What are we going to bring in? Another guy that's just going to be suspended? I mean, don't we have enough? Haven't we hit our quota? Do we really need to worry about?
There's no truth to it.
Okay.
No,
Right.
no. But
sure.
but Matt was in Palm Beach for the owners' meetings. We'll ask him about how
Right.
it went.
We didn't get a chance to catch up with Perino. Last week you were under the weather and he was flying back, so it was it will be good to get caught up with Perino. We'll talk some Buffalo Bills here. Syracuse Post Standard. He joins us in about 20 minutes or so. You can pull up a stool and join us this afternoon on the Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub. Wingman line, 866-4FAN is our phone number, 585-866-4326. Award-winning barbecue from Good Smoke Barbecue and Pub at 135 West Commercial Street in ER. GoodSmokeBBQ.com.
So the Denver Nuggets have lost 4 in a row. Not ideal when you are trying to, get your playoff spot all secure. By the way, if you haven't noticed, this is the last week of the NBA's regular season. We're going to jump right in to the postseason here coming up shortly. Denver is a team that's certainly out of the West. You would say, well, with Jokic and their pedigree, they won this thing before. They have Rochester royalty and Pickett. They're a team to be reckoned with. But, hey, something's off here. Never did I think that not only would the head coach be fired, but also the general manager got fired in Denver today.
Yeah. This is
5 days left in the season.
Wait, you know what the thing about the NBA that kind of stinks is the only time we talk about the NBA is when something crazy off the court happens in terms of a wild trade or a coach or GM being fired with no time left in the season. The NBA is drunk this year. I really don't know. This is the only time we talk about the Luka getting dealt, and coaches getting fired with a few games left in the season.
The coach that won you a championship 2 years ago, and there's this trend now of, like, if you could look it up between starting with Nurse back in Toronto, like all these coaches. I don't think we count Frank Vogel with the Lakers because did that really happen?
No, that was in the bubble, right?
Right.
That big asterisk, not a real championship.
Not a real championship, but this continues the trend here. And then, so the first question. Why? Why would you do such a thing? This is a team that certainly could come out of the West and maybe win another championship. Why would you upset the apple cart with both the head coach and the GM? And I think it's one of those, all right, people will start digging. Denver isn't the biggest media market, but there are enough reports now where we can piece this together where, Danger, these two guys did not get along, apparently. Yeah, so Michael Malone, the head coach, and then the GM, Calvin Booth, talking behind each other's backs, not working together, and that's all I know. Now, I'm just going to speculate. If it gets to a point where, okay, it's me or him, well, maybe the owner at this point just said, you know what, we're done here.
All
Both
right,
of you get out.
let's go there. Let's trace it to ownership, because when you realize who you're dealing with here and you have the kind of wealth and power that this guy has, you really don't have time to deal with childish antics. If the head coach and GM aren't aligned, and that the indications is that, one wanted a priority on development and getting younger players more playing time. The other was trying to win basketball games and win a title with the veterans that they have. Stan Kroenke has been the owner of the Nuggets since 2000. He also owns the Avalanche. He also owns the MLS Colorado Rapids. He owns the NLL's Colorado Mammoth. Everything in Denver except for the Broncos, which, by the way, he's kind of indirectly involved in through marriage, right? Through the Walton Empire. The Walton Empire basically owns all of Denver sports.
Yeah, and Kroenke also owns the worst toupee that we know on the planet today.
He owns the Rams in the NFL, which means he can own the Broncos. He owns Arsenal in the Premier League. So my point is, Stan Kroenke has so much going on that if the reports are that these two guys are not talking to each other, that there's dysfunction between the GM and the head coach, yeah, the easiest thing for him to do is like get rid of him. I'm Stan Kroenke. I'll find somebody else to do that job, and we'll be fine. Go ahead, move on. Even if there's only a few games left in the season, he's probably thinking about something else. Like, whoa, what are we going to do with Arsenal? What about we got the draft coming up with the Rams here in a couple of weeks. I can't be dealing with a head coach and a GM. And maybe there's even more to it than they didn't get along or they're not speaking. They're not on speaking terms. Maybe there's more there that we may never know. But that's the only thing that I can think of that even remotely makes sense as to why Denver would do it. And even then, it's like, man, you're almost through the season. Suck it up and let's get a title. What are we doing?
Well, maybe there's other things, too. It's not just as simple as the GM and the head coach hate each other. You've got this other story, and thanks to Alex Krabrasky for pointing this out, surrounding Jamal Murray. Murray has been out 5 straight games with a hamstring injury. And as we mentioned, they lost 4 in a row. But it's this quote that's a little unusual from Malone. Talking about, okay, well, basic question, will Murray be back by the playoffs? Well, hopefully he's back by then. This has been a weird one. It was day-to-day, and next thing you know, it's not day-to-day. Well,
right.
Normally you don't get a head coach.
So if you have players who disagree with the head coach, but they side with the GM, and you have other players that are with the head coach, don't really care about the GM, then you've got a fractured locker room, which is less than ideal when you're heading into the postseason. And maybe you get your David Edelman here as your interim head coach to maybe galvanize these guys down the stretch. I'm doubtful of that. And then if you're Jokic, I don't know whose side you're on, but if you're Jokic and you see this, I mean, you could say this offseason, get me out of here. What are we doing? I don't want to be here anymore.
Either that or you're just kind of accustomed. And there is kind of a history lesson here, Danger. This is before you got to town, but if you ask any Sabre fan, name me some of your favorite teams in Sabre history. Man, the 1 year, the Ted Nolan era, well, it didn't last too long, and everybody kind of knew that John Muckler and Ted Nolan hated each other, GM and head coach. Sabres as a 7, knock off a 2nd seed in Ottawa, and Muckler's, they show him up in the box, and he's upset. Muckler following the season, fired. So they bring in Darcy Regier. Darcy Regier was from there to the beginning of the tank, okay? That's how long he was there as the Sabre GM. And then Ted Nolan comes in, and they offer him a 1-year deal, which was just basically, yeah, we really don't want you. We're going to pay you minimum wage, which he turned down, and that was it. Offer off the table. That's how Lindy Ruff became the head coach of the Buffalo Sabres. That the GM and the head coach hated each other.
Now,
Buffalo.
there are, if I'm not mistaken, some other salacious rumors around the Ted Nolan era of the Buffalo Sabres as well.
Well, look, we could. Yeah, I mean, if you live in Western New York, you know what
rumors.
we're talking about.
Yeah, there are some salacious rumors that maybe had something to do with it. Maybe there was something like that going on in Denver. You don't know, right?
Do we have tape of this? I swear we do somewhere. We'll have to pull it up. You know, Matthew Collar asked Ted Nolan that question.
Oh,
Matthew Collar. This is going back years. This is before Collar was even in Buffalo. He bought an hour on our station, invites Ted Nolan, and asked him, hey, about those rumors that you're with Dominic Hasek's wife. No, that is not true whatsoever.
But they're rumors. They're out there.
Like, wow, when I heard that might have gotten Matthew the job in Buffalo. Like, wow, I couldn't ask that question.
Right.
Yeah.
So we don't know all of what maybe went down here in Denver, but you've got the conflicts is what's being reported between the head coach and the GM, leading to them both being let go. And maybe it is more about division in the locker room where you've got players kind of picking sides. And while all of this is happening, you're amidst, your longest losing streak of the season, going into the postseason, time to make a change. If you're Malone, are you looking at how this roster is constructed, the fact that you've lost some key players from the championship team, that you brought in guys like Russell Westbrook. I mean,
Yeah.
maybe some of these decisions led to a further division between these two men who are now both looking for jobs. And Malone will find a job, I would imagine. Like, unless there's something more to this story that we don't know, or there's some rumors or something salacious, then maybe, but even, Ime Udoka found work again. Like, even though and that was not even rumors. That was like, oh no, that's what he did in Boston.
Well, does this mean this is an early exit for Denver? I'm just asking you because one thing I do know about Nikola Jokic, he wants to go home. Like, if Denver had an early exit, nobody would be pointing the finger at Jokic or Murray or anybody else on that roster. It would be, well, what did you expect here? And they played an okay Clipper team in the first round.
Yeah, I was really kind of curious as to whether or not this is anything that has led to success, this kind of change. And because it's so late in the season, like there aren't any examples of a firing this late in the season leading to any sort of long-term success. The statistical impact of a mid-season coaching change, usually modest gains if you're talking about mid-season. But because it's so late in the season, there really isn't it's kind of uncharted territory to see whether or not Denver can make some sort of a run here with an interim head coach after firing their head coach and GM this late into the season.
Oh, gosh. It worked for the New Jersey Devils. Who was the coach? So Lamoriello were like a week to go. Was it Robinson that took over? Somebody help me out on that. That's what I would point to, that example of, but that's Lou Lamoriello. He's crazy, and that's a different sport entirely.
Hockey is different,
yeah,
right?
That's like this is not.
You had, who's the Oilers coach? Is that Knobloch, Chris Knobloch, who last year took over, and they made it all the way to the Stanley Cup final, didn't win it all. But you've got some examples of this. Let's shake it up. Let's make this change now, and maybe we get a favorable outcome down the stretch and into the postseason with the kind of toxicity and division and schism that we have within the organization. Now we've eliminated the cancers that we have in our organization, and maybe that leads to them pulling it together here down the stretch.
So it was Robbie Ftorek, remember him? Fired in March of 2000, right before the playoffs began. It started a little earlier back then. And then Jacques Lemaire takes over.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Jacques Lemaire. Yep. And Jacques Lemaire had a history of kind of like winning everywhere he went, at least initially. It worked until it didn't.
No, I'm sorry. I got that. It was Lemaire, but it was Larry Robinson. And then Robinson, with just 2 weeks to work with, won the team a cup. Basically.
Oh, okay.
Yep,
so Robinson came in late in the season.
Yeah, that's what it
took
was.
over Lemaire. Okay.
Yeah, so I got that messed up.
Well, remains to be seen, obviously, what will happen here with Denver. But this is, what do they say in dodgeball? Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
Can we clear the air about something before we go any further here? I come into the studio today, and I'm working. I'm trying to get the show together. I'm not all up on the scores. Dan DeLorean, whatever game he has on, he will always put the game on, okay?
Yankees are on right
Yankees
now.
on. So I come into the studio, and I just look up at the score. I don't know even because it's in commercial break right now, but at 3 o'clock today, the beginning of the show, it was Tigers 5, Yankees nothing. And I just let a little, and Dan's like, you can't do that. Wait a second. Why can't I do that, Danger? It's not making me a misfit fan if I go, if the Yankees are going to lose another afternoon game to the Tigers.
Really?
Today.
You don't think so? Why do you care what the Yankees do?
Why do I care? Because there are some that like to think of us Met fans as little brother for whatever, which is absolutely not true.
Misfit behavior.
It is not misfitting.
I kind of like, you know what I'm going to do? Dan is not a Mets misfit fan. I'm lifting the label off of Dan. Dan is exempt from being a misfit. He is not.
Dan's just negative about everything.
I know, but he understands. Like, Gene, you can't scoff at the Yankees' despair this afternoon. You can't. Yeah, and especially with your team riding a win streak right now, you're going because the Mets are winning and the Yankees are losing. Absolutely misfit behavior, Gino. Absolutely misfit behavior.
You can't do that if you can't go, You mean to tell, okay.
You could say, whoa.
Take a Yankee
You
fan.
could say, whoa, like in surprise. You didn't, though. You went, like almost like, like evil laugh. Like, yeah, that's right. The Yankees are losing. They're not even in your division. What do you care? Yeah, you're both in New York. Yes, you are the little brother. They've won 26.
That's not true.
They've won 26. You've won 2. Reality. They've won 26. You've won 2. I don't know what to tell
The
you,
Mets
Gino.
haven't been around for half as long as the
Okay,
Yankees, all
but
right? So
I don't know what to tell you. Like, that's not how you react to a 5-0 Yankees score. You don't go, You can go, whoa, whoa, what's going on? Like, I was surprised. Well, the Yankees are getting a taste of their own medicine. Like, they're getting beat up a little bit by this Tiger squad. But no, I don't think Dan, if you're listening, pal, I know you're a Mets fan. When I call Mets fans misfits, you're exempt.
I think that was a little Met fan on Met fan crime, because for Dan to wave his finger at me and say, no, that's not
For you to think that is very misfitian. For you to think that there was an agenda there is why you are a misfit, Gene. It's why you're a misfit Mets fan. It's not that serious.
Wait.
Dad just saying, Gene, come on. You can't do that. That's not right.
Like, it's not healthy to take pleasure in the demise of others, but this isn't others. This is a team.
Yeah, see, you could have just, it's not healthy to take pleasure in the demise of others, period. You didn't need a but. You didn't need to continue. I'd consider lifting the title on you as well, Gene, except you kept going. You didn't stop at period. That's it. You don't have to revel in the misfortune of others, period.
So for Bills fans that read a bad quote from Woody Johnson or look at the Dolphins not accomplishing what they need to. By the way, that is final now. Tigers over the Yankees, 5-0.
Right, don't worry. We'll switch it over to the Mets so you can be distracted here at 4 o'clock.
What's the difference between a Bills fan going, well, good luck there with the new quarterback there, Jets. Yeah, Justin Fields going to work out real well. Now, is that improper behavior, or is that just being a sports fan?
I think if it's factual and you're pointing and laughing at somebody like a Woody Johnson, I don't know if there's a problem with that. That we're pointing and laughing at Woody Johnson.
I'm pointing and laughing at a score.
But the Yankees aren't your rival. The Jets are. Your comparison here is not the same. The Jets are in the same division. Now, if you were looking at the score of, let's say the Phillies were getting waxed, you'd be like, now that would make sense.
Okay. For example, last Thursday when we had Dan Fates on the night before, like, okay, I go to bed. Hey, the Braves are up. And wake up the next morning. Oh, they got him again.
Yep.
Oh.
Yep.
So
That's fair.
that's fair.
Yeah, they're in your
These are the
division.
rules.
That's
Okay.
your rival.
All right.
The Yankees aren't your rival. You're making them into something that they're not. They're not your rival. You're the Mets. You're the fun-loving Mets. You tell me all the time, we are the team that likes to have fun. Well, why are you worried about the Yankees then? Why are you scoffing at their score? Why are you scoffing at their misery? You don't have to do that, Gino. You don't have to do that.
It's wrong for me to take pleasure in the Yankees losing.
That's right. That's right. Dan, you're exempt. You're no longer a misfit. Gino, we're working on you. We'll get there. Matt Perino, he's a Yankee guy, right? I think Perino's a Yankee guy. No? Why do I think I saw him with a Yankee?
Well, remember, his cousin is, if you love baseball in our town, Andy Perino.
That's right.
Brockport, played for the Padres, so probably his loyalties are a little
With his
different.
brother.
Yeah, with his cousin.
I'm sorry, his cousin. Correct. Yes, Matt Perino, covering the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard, will be stopping by the sports bar next, and we'll get a little Bills update here on the Fan Rochester.
update.
Buffalo Sabres still alive, not yet eliminated from postseason contention, although a loss tonight against Carolina would put that to rest. Lindy Roth, though, wants his team to continue to fight.
I think it means a lot because we're working on our game. I've said this. Our goal is to try to win every game. It isn't to develop players or seed players. Our goal is play the type of hockey that we can sustain and be consistent with, and that's what this stretch is all about. And the numbers have been better. I think our team's getting rewarded offensively and defensively for it.
We'll have the coverage tonight beginning at 7 o'clock here on The Fan. Denver Nuggets fire both head coach Michael Malone and GM Calvin Booth. New York Yankees today in Detroit, and they fall for the second straight day, 5-0 being the final. Mets taking on the Marlins. That game has been moved up to 4 o'clock today. The Rochester Red Wings tonight, still scheduled in Worcester. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader. The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
This draft has to focus on the defensive side of the ball, at least where the roster sits right now. It has to be all about defense on this draft. And I think that's where we're going to sit. And for the next, just over 2 weeks, we're going to be sitting here pounding on that drum.
There's Steve Tasker earlier today on One Bills Live here on the Fan Rochester talking about the Buffalo Bills and the draft now 16 days away. Matt Perino covering the team for the Syracuse Post-Standard. Good with his time. Joining us as he does every Tuesday, although last Tuesday a little bit of a break as you were returning from the NFL owners meeting. He's got to know, how was it rubbing shoulders with the extremely wealthy, Matt?
It's always quite an experience, right? I mean, that Breakers Hotel is something that the thing that stunk was the party was moved inside because it was raining really bad on that Monday night. And at the Breakers, it's really nice because you do it right on the water. Like it's pretty cool. So that was a bummer. But overall, I mean, we got some sun for a couple of days. I came back with a little sunburn, so nothing wrong with that.
Sean McDermott, that was probably one of the big storylines. What did you make of McDermott talking? Really, it wasn't just you guys. It was the national media. It became a national story. His defense of perhaps getting rid of the tush push, something that, has been tabled here, Matt.
Yeah, I think, reading between the lines, it's something I know a lot of fans struggled with the idea that, the Bills did it so well. They were one of the teams that really did it well, and then you have the head coach arguing against it. But for whatever reason, maybe he just doesn't want it in the game. Now, me personally, I don't have a huge issue with it. I don't know if that play singularly – first of all, we don't have enough data. None of the people that were arguing against or for removing it showed any real hard data on the increased injury risk outside of being in a posture that isn't great. But I think – it's football at the end of the day. It's a play at the end of the day. And I think that some of the people that were talking about, I think it was Aaron Glenn that came out and said, it's a play that as a defensive-minded guy, I got to figure out a way to stop. And I think that's probably the attitude you'd prefer. But Sean's in a different spot because he's on the competition committee, right? So they're all having this conversation. I think Tomlin, him, and McVay all on the competition committee at some point had a comment about saying that taking it out of the game would be something that, they're looking at for a multitude of reasons. At the end of the day, I mean, it's who knows. The fact that I heard something that the fact that they pushed it and that there's enough of an interest and maybe Roger Goodell wants it out of the game, right, that this is something that could happen. I don't know, man. It just seems like a lot to do about nothing.
Well, I really feel like there is something more sinister at play, that it isn't really McDermott or the competition committee that's making these suggestions, that it is coming from Goodell. It is coming from the owners that, when you saw the tush push result in what we saw in the NFC Championship game, which was, let's face it, it was just kind of an S show there for a little bit between the Commanders and the Eagles. And knowing that McDermott is somebody that has relied on that play in his offense, it does feel a little bit fishy that he's the guy that's been put in charge of kind of being the mouthpiece for this play being eliminated from the game.
Yeah, for sure. And I think also, usually what the league wants to do, the league's going to do, right? I mean, the 18th game coming up is the next big talking point and agenda item that the league wants to get taken care of. It gets tiring at some point, but it's also the beast that you just come to know and deal with, all these little behind closed doors kinds of things and how they're kind of strategically trying to play all these things out. It's just a league that there's just infinite interest, infinite, and it's America's game at this point, and they can kind of do what they want, I guess.
Matt, I'm going to say that James Cook isn't serious about selling his house until they have an open house that we can kind of go all around and walk through and see all the memorabilia. I mean, like if that that's like the last card in the deck, right? For the Cook side of things, right? Okay, maybe he's unhappy. We're putting our house on the market, but from the owners' meetings, you did have Brandon Beane discussing how at least for now, at least until the draft, okay, this is not going to be addressed until after the draft. So. Matt, just kind of going to ask you open-ended. Where do you think we go in this story from here in regards to James Cook and the Buffalo Bills?
I think it's smart going into your last season and not having a contract extension done at this point, and you're not really super close, based on Brandon Beane's comments, to kind of put your house out there. Although, side note, Gino, you want to go in an open house in James Cook's house? Like, did you get a raise or did you get a second job? Like, what do we got to know here?
Calling a lot of games. He's calling a lot of games.
Selling a lot of ads here, Matt. Matt's like, okay, well then cut me in on that. Fair enough. We'll have to talk off air. I'm also like a Zillow nut. I like looking at Zillow gone crazy and everything like that. I just, it's one of my pastimes looking at things on the market. Maybe that'll be my next career, selling real estate. But Matt, I mean, they wanted you to know that was his house, okay? Because look at their mantle, all those game balls, and look at all these jerseys and everything else like that. Didn't seem like they were really serious about putting the home up for sale. It was just more kind of a statement to me.
Sure, and I think that, listen, this has been a back and forth setup since this, end of the season, and James Cook has been very vocal. I mean, he was basically invisible for 3 years, right? Like when we talked to him in the locker room, you'd get like 1 or 2 word answers, sometimes a sentence. That was a big day. You could write off of that. And off-season stuff, like he really disappeared for the most part. And so this has been a very calculated move here, and he's trying to cash in like a couple of his other running backs in the NFL have been able to. I think it's going to be, in the end, a losing battle if he wants to maximize money in this spot on a team that's paying the quarterback and 2 tackles and now an edge rusher, a top cornerback. They haven't really paid a wide receiver yet, but who knows if things don't go well this year, depending on how things transpire, maybe they do that. Maybe they trade for a wide receiver and end up having to pay the wide receiver. So, you just have to try to figure out where are the positions that if you're Brandon Beane, that I can maximize production at a cost-controlled number. And to me, running back is the place, specifically in the draft every year, where you could take a couple of swings with 10 picks going into this draft, find some competition not only for Cook, but Ray Davis and Ty Johnson, and come out the other end, whether it be a trade for Cook or, you want to roll with four backs or however it ends up like working out as you move towards next offseason. You have all of those options, and I think you should keep your options open. And, I just don't think that James Cook wants to play ball on a team-friendly deal the way that those other 4 guys did, and you kind of heard that list, like reading between the lines, hearing from Brandon last week.
Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard Shout podcast, our guest here in the sports bar. Matt, quick story. So visiting with a friend this morning, and a friend just says, hey, you haven't talked about this Jordan Addison rumor. I'm like, what? I haven't heard
Oh, my gosh.
No. Well, you know where I'm going with this. Let me explain to the audience, because I hadn't heard anything. Well, surely I should read Matt's mailbag all the time, because I go to all these Viking sites, and they're sourcing your mailbag. And clearly you're just kind of putting that out there, Matt. This is how sometimes the news cycle works. Let's make this clear. There's nothing more than, hey, if the Bills are looking for a wide receiver, who might be some names, but it's just speculation, correct?
Dude, so let me tell us this story. So I texted my editor actually 4 or 5 days ago and said, miss me with these mailbags moving forward. Because here's what happens. I was answering fan questions. So like that, obviously a trade possibility? Where would they look to make a trade for a cornerback, an edge rusher? I talked about a couple wide receiver ideas. We talked about Olave earlier in the offseason. Addison is one that's very interesting because I remember that back when he was coming out in the draft, I believe that was the Dalton Kincaid year, the Bills, had done some work on him and reportedly were interested in him. And they just paid Jefferson. And so I figured Addison's a guy that's going to need a new deal. He kind of fits that bucket of outside receiver that can do multiple things, can get separation, developing as a route runner, all these kinds of things. Well, ever since then, Ryan Talbot sent me a clip yesterday from somewhere on some betting website, Bovada, I think, where the Bills are now the betting favorite to land Jordan Addison. And this thing is taking on a life of its own. I have my name along with probably 100 other names in Google alerts. Like if something gets written about Josh Allen or James Cook or whatever, I like to kind of get it all thrown into my email, including my name. My name has never been sent to my email address as much as it has in the last 2 weeks. And it is wild. And you have these aggregator social media. That's the thing. To me, it's more so than the articles. It's these social media. I'm getting tagged on Instagram, on TikTok, on Blue Sky, on X, everywhere. Like Matt Perino reporting that the Bills are going to make a run at Jordan Addison. Nope. I mean, reading, I know it's 2025, and maybe reading, the expectation for people to read things is should be gone. But man, it has been a wild ride these last couple of weeks.
Let's dive a little bit more into some of the work that Ryan's doing here as far as tracking some of these pre-draft visitors here with 16 days to go between now and round one of the NFL draft. And we know that the Bills, when they take in some of these visitors, they do end up drafting the guys that they like from these pre-draft visits. Anybody perking up your ears here in terms of who the Bills have spoken to?
It's hard because, as Brandon pointed out, and you mentioned Ryan, he's doing a phenomenal job on that. The dude grinds that circuit like no other. And Brandon mentioned this last week, like some of these 30 visits are to check some boxes. So like there might be half of these where you like the guy, you scouted him, but maybe you found some things during this last 2-month cycle that you didn't like. And so now you want to get him inside your building and just see if they're going to stay at that spot on their board, or maybe even push them completely off or down your board. So like, I think a lot of times people maybe overreact to the 30 visits. Like all 30 of these visits are like to sign, seal, and deliver this potential prospect as somebody that they like. Now, the majority are obviously people that they're interested in, no doubt. But I do think at the same time, you got to kind of, take these with a grain of salt. I think, the defensive tackle, Tyleik Williams, is one that's interesting because to me, that's a need. And I think where they're drafting at 30, it's going to be really interesting in terms of where they end up going with these 3 picks in the first 62 because they have a couple of important defensive needs: cornerback, defensive tackle, and edge rusher. And they've brought in a couple players at all 3 of those positions. And, defensive tackle specifically is one that I get perked up a little bit about because we're going to learn so much about how they view what they want to be moving forward by the defensive tackle that they do end up taking in this draft. Look at Derek Harmon, who Ryan mocked in his last mock, he's a very different prospect than Kenneth Grant, who I mocked to the Bills in my mock about a month ago. It depends on what you want. Do you want somebody that can go next to Ed Oliver like Kenneth Grant can and almost help everybody around him? That's really rich price to pay at 30, some people would argue, whereas Derek Harmon is that absolute chaos creator, somebody that can rush the passer. He is going to be on the field on all 3 downs. And to be honest with you, probably the heir apparent to Ed Oliver if they take a player like that. So that's kind of like an interesting side caveat to this. And then cornerback is a need. And I think if you're looking at the board and where there might be real value at 30 because of this specific class, I think cornerback. I mean, I've spent my last 3 days diving through this cornerback class to try to figure out who's a really interesting option. I mean, Will Johnson out of Michigan, who going into this whole process was going to be probably a top 10 pick. Some people are now talking about him in the 20s. Do the Bills want to get aggressive and go up and get a guy that, you can say all you want about this season. His 2023 season was as good as it gets when it comes to ball production, ability to play in a zone scheme. Like, now you're starting to talk about a position of need, maybe getting a top 10 caliber player that you might want to move up for. So there's so many different things. And I've not seen Will Johnson as a visit, as somebody that the Bills have been even linked to very much. But those are the kind of, maybe they don't want that out there, that they're interested in a guy like that. And that's the other part of this that's really interesting, trying to connect all the dots.
Yeah, Chris Trapasso has Will Johnson number 8 to Carolina. We love those mock drafts. It helps you kind of picture, how this may go here. Matt, last one for me, and it is kind of following up there because you mentioned Johnson. With the Bills having 2 second-round picks, I don't know what they do with 30, but if I had to make one guess, Brandon Beane likes to move up in the draft. He does, I will identify. So what kind of capital would you have to kind of go up, whether it's Johnson or somebody else? Are we looking at perhaps giving up one or both of those second-round picks?
I don't know if that might be a little bit too rich, and they have so much day 3 capital that I think that, moving up 4 or 5 spots for a 4th rounder or something like that makes a little bit more sense, depending on if that would be enough, and maybe you want to give a future 5th or future 6th or something like that, or maybe you want to give a 4th and a 5th because you got a bunch of 5ths as well, and then get a little bit more, move back-minded in the later rounds. I don't know how they're going to play this out, and maybe, if the draft goes a certain way, how Brandon Beane stacks his board, I would imagine, unless there's somebody that you got to have them. And listen, maybe there's a player in this draft where I got to get up to 12, 13 range to go up and get a guy that we really want. That could be a mindset going into for this thing. But the other way that they usually go about it is there's a range that they'd be comfortable trading into. They let the board fall out, and then when they're a certain amount of picks away, 10 players, 7 players, whatever it ends up being, they're going to make a decision based on, is there 7 players that we would take at 30 that we'll get no matter how the board falls here, or are there not enough? Are there only 3 left and we're still 7 picks away? Now you got to get aggressive and trade up. And that's, to me, who knows? Maybe something crazy happens on the night and they do get aggressive and go up. They have a ton of draft capital. But I also think that they want to throw some darts at some positions, specifically defensive tackle, cornerback. I don't think that they want to give up too much future capital as well. So it's going to be interesting how they play it out.
Matt, what's on the agenda for Shout this week that we can check out?
We're back tomorrow night. Ryan and I will be going out on about all of these big top 30 visits, the ones that interest us the most. And then I'll be I don't think it's going to be this week. It might be next week, but I'm going to be bringing on the Athletics' Dane Brugler, author of The Beast, for a big Bills draft preview. So we're looking forward to that as well.
God, check that out. Matt, who's your baseball team? We know Andy is your cousin, but were your loyalties with him? We've seen Danger, and I cannot recall if you were a Met fan, a Yankee fan, where your loyalties were.
You're not going to like my answer. I grew up a diehard Yankees fan, and I was my prime years were the McGuire-Sosa era. So on the other side of that, probably by 2010, I had really fizzled out after the last Yankees championship. And so I didn't pay attention to the pro game until my son was born, and we really started getting going in baseball and probably reconnected in 21. So, I'm probably a Yankees fan at heart going back to my childhood, but we kind of just whatever players he likes, we kind of tend to gravitate to. So he loves Shohei Ohtani. I have to go to Philadelphia this weekend for a conference, and I'm taking him and my dad with us. We're going to go see Bryce Harper and the Phillies on Monday. So we kind of move around, and we're trying to get through every park, right? We're trying to see a game in as many parks as we can across the country. So Philly's up next.
I love it. Matt, enjoy the rest of your week, man. Thanks for the time.
Anytime. Take care, guys.
There's Matt Perino. He covers the Buffalo Bills at the Syracuse Post-Standard, the Shout podcast as well, syracuse.com if you want to check out his work.
Yeah, that is fun, though, connecting through sports through your kids.
It's the best. Yeah. I mean, I know that I don't love baseball the way I love football. I like baseball, but some of my best memories as a kid, it's exactly what Matt is describing. My old man taking me to Wrigley Field, my first ball game. My old man taking me to a Twins game at the Metrodome and watching Kirby Puckett. Great memories that can't be duplicated that all center around the game of baseball.
Oh, man, took me and my brother up to Exhibition Stadium, see the Yankees and the Jays, and then going to Fenway Park as a kid where, like, you see this on TV and you walk through, like, whoa, this is really it. So
the one constant through all the years, Gene, has been baseball.
See, let me just point out something. You were at the beginning of the show 9 years ago. And look, I have lots of friends that are like this. I hate baseball.
I never said that.
Okay, you liked soccer. You were making the argument that Major League Soccer would soon take over
I didn't
Major
say
League
soon. You're putting words in my mouth, man.
Major League Baseball.
I said I like what Major League Soccer has going on. You watch Major League Soccer, it's a commercial-free presentation. It's an easy-to-consume product. And for the most part, it's selling. Like wherever there's a franchise, the stadiums are full. And I thought that was impressive. At the time, baseball was still languishing with 3.5, 4 hour long games. People weren't going to as many games. There was just they've cleaned some things up. I don't hate baseball. I just don't love baseball the way I love other sports.
I'm going to give myself some credit here that actually I think it's my influence that is helping you come around baseball. Danger's like turning and looking away. They're saying, no, not a chance.
You know
is it the neighborhood Goombas? Because imagine the Goombas, they're your neighborhood. They're all like, hey, let's talk,
Here's what I like. Yeah. No, you know who is more influential than you? Timmy Parmesan, my neighbor.
What did I say?
Timmy Parmesan.
Yeah.
Timmy Parmesan, we were at a grad party a couple of years ago in the neighborhood. I've talked about the guys in my neighborhood before, right? You've heard me talk about them. Well, Timmy Parmesan was at the grad party, and we walked down a couple houses to his place. He's like, let me show you what I got going on in my garage. And he's got the projector screen and the furniture out there. Not the standard Italian living room because he's not an Italian, but it was. I'm like, you just sit out here and watch baseball. It's like all night. I just sit out here and watch baseball. I'm like, dude, I'm in. And just like a summer later, we got the screen up in the garage. Now we got like the Italian living room with the projector. And I do like in the summertime firing it up and going out there and watching a little ball game, whatever it is, whatever might be on, during Stanley Cup finals and Stanley Cup playoff season. I'll be watching that before I'll be watching baseball. But there is a stretch there in the summer where it's like, got to watch a ball game tonight in the garage. Let's go.
Did Timmy Parmesan go to Guardians opening day?
He did not, I don't think.
It's today, taking on the White Sox.
No, but I might need a day off this summer because when I saw him at Bourbon Night on Friday night, he's like, we got to go to a Guardians game this year? I'm like, pick a day. Let's go. So there might be a Guardians field trip for me.
You've been to that stadium.
I have.
It's nice.
It's fine. It's fine. I would prefer to go to a stadium I've never been to before, but I'm not going to say no to going to a Guardians game.
Well, you're going to Citi Field, and everything will pale in comparison once you're.
Please, I've been to Wrigley. All right, so like Wrigley,
Wrigley Field,
as the great,
born and healed. You've been with the Greek.
Hold on, the great Eddie Vedder, a voice of our generation, once said, "When you're born in Chicago, you are blessed and you're healed the first time you walk into Wrigley Field." Yes, Gino.
I will take your Eddie Vedder, and I will see you, Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld. That's
okay.
There we go.
All right, we're going to break. We're going to come back. We got Mike Leone. He's joining us in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll talk about the Rochester Americans. We have time for your calls if you want to join us. That number is 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
92.2 Rochester. And streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester. Sports Update.
Buffalo Sabres still alive, not yet eliminated here on April the 8th, although a loss tonight that would end it. Carolina is the opponent. Marty Baron on the opponent.
They don't give up a lot, but on the road, they're technically 5 games under 500. They're 2 games under NHL 500, but they're 16-21 on the road. This is not the typical Rod Brindamore team that plays well on the road.
Our coverage will begin at 7 o'clock tonight here on the Fan Rochester. We'll talk to Amerks head coach Mike Leone. That's coming up later this hour here in the Sports Bar. Denver Nuggets today making a move, firing their head coach Michael Malone and their GM Calvin Booth as we are in the final week of the regular season in the NBA. Yankees today falling to the Tigers 5-0, just underway. It's the Mets and Marlins, Guardians and White Sox as well. Red Wings game tonight. They play in Worcester. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
From 12 down to the school's 3rd national championship in men's basketball. 65-63 the final. The Florida Gators are the national champions once again.
It's Masters Week. I know that makes you very happy.
Oh, buddy.
The Masters Champions Dinner is tonight. It's Scotty's Choice on the menu.
Mike Danger.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah? Tell me, cuz. Who do you like at the Masters?
I don't want to offend anybody that might be listening, but we're from Rochester. That's how we talk.
Oh, yeah?
Gene Battaglia.
Danger, although it still feels like winter, the winter of sports, it's melting away, my friend. Spring is here.
Let's hope this means we get spring here, too, in Western New York very soon.
Yeah.
Amerks Hockey.
He scored! 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan. Rochester.
We'll check in on the Rochester Americans in about 20 minutes. Head coach Mike Leone stops by for his weekly visit. We welcome you back into the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Thanks for listening at 95.7 FM, AM 950. Free to download Odyssey app and also checking out the stream on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester, where we stream live every afternoon from 3 until 6. I'm Danger. That's Battaglia.
Just this kind of really sad story out of the Dominican. Did you see this? So there's a nightclub. The roof collapses. 160 people right now are unaccounted. They have 44 that have been pulled that have announced dead. It's not too often that you have conflicting reports to somebody passing. So you have the New York Post and Fox reporting that former Major Leaguer Octavio Dotel was a closer for many teams, did not make it, 51. ESPN is saying he's alive.
Oh, boy.
So I would think maybe just kind of back off until you actually figure this out one way or another. But still, it's just a terrible story overall.
Yeah, I don't think you want to speculate on whether or not a guy survived a nightclub collapsing or not. We are going to speculate a lot, though, on what's going on right now in the Mile High with the Denver Nuggets. This feels and smells real fishy.
Well, I think at first you're saying, what on earth? Why? And can we just be honest with ourselves? What do we really know about the Denver Nuggets? Well, they have one of the best players in the game today. They have a guy from Rochester. We were like him. They have another guy, Jamal Murray, that if he was healthy, who knows how far this team could go. Denver's one of those teams, because they've lost 4 in a row, hey, they could lose in the first round. Hey, they could win the whole thing. Those are the most fun teams, right? The variants of the Denver Nuggets. And right now they sit in 4th place of the Western Conference. They won a championship 2 years ago. They fired their head coach and their GM.
Here's Shams.
And this is stunning because we're just days away from the end of the regular season, days away from the start of the NBA playoffs. As far as a firing, this is tied with Hubie Brown in 1980-81 season. For the deepest into a regular season we've seen a coach get fired. Michael Malone is the winningest coach in Denver Nuggets franchise history. And the Nuggets, from my understanding, just believed that they needed a full culture reset. There's been something of a Cold War brewing between both Malone and Booth over the last couple of years. And Malone is really the established coach in place there. And now the fact that he is out, it is stunning across the NBA.
I think the timing of this is stunning. Okay, so head coach and GM not liking each other. Guess what?
That seems common.
Yeah, I'm sure probably Sean McDermott and Brandon Beane have their differences, but they're smart enough to kind of keep it behind closed doors. They provide a unified front. Whoever covers the Denver Nuggets, not a surprise that these two guys just don't get along. There's one report that they would both talk behind each other's back, okay? So, all right, was it so bad you've got to make this move now? This is just me speculating, but you don't make this move, Danger. Who's making the move? It's the owner that's making the move. And the owner probably looks at the situation like, okay, if it's in either him or me situation, then you're both gone here. Get out.
You're being children. And I've got a lot of sports franchises to run. So if you can't figure it out, I'll find somebody who will. That's what I can do. I'm Stan Kroenke. The coach wanted to win, more veteran players in the lineup. Booth wanted to develop younger players, get them more minutes. They don't see eye to eye. They have a little philosophical rift. And the next thing you know, they're both out of a job in Denver. This late in the season is what makes it shocking. The NBA is drunk this year. We're not talking about the play on the court as much as we're talking about all of the antics off the court, whether it's Luka getting dealt, Memphis firing their coach, and now Denver firing both coach and GM.
Well, if you're someone that was like, oh, wait a second, the NBA playoffs are next week, essentially. They take a few days off. But, yeah, this is the final weekend of the regular season in the NBA. There's a lot going on. We just got done with the tournament. We've got the Masters. We've got Major League Baseball. It's a great time of year. And the NBA, that's a secret winner here today. Like, we're talking about the NBA, and you put it into context. All right, Denver is a 4. The Lakers are somehow a 3. Is that a real 3? Are we believing in Oklahoma City? Oklahoma City has this gigantic lead out west. Like if that said L.A. Lakers instead of Oklahoma City, we'd be having a different conversation right now.
No, I mean, ESPN's going to give the Lakers more coverage than OKC every night of the week and double on the weekends. But, yeah, the NBA postseason is going to be fun. It's going to be interesting. This is just another layer added to that intrigue when you have David Edelman as the interim head coach. You would assume for the rest of the season here with Denver in a position to go on a run. We'll see what it looks like.
Jalen Pickett, Aquinas grad, triple-double. We'll talk to Jimmy Patsos, by the way, on the show tomorrow.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, Coach Patsos returning. We tried to get him on. The schedules couldn't match up there for the Final Four, but he was right now doing television for the Washington Wizards.
He'll have some takes on this, I'm sure.
I would think so.
Speaking of college basketball, we do have a champion. It's Florida, who erased a late, 12-point deficit to get the win. Turnovers down the stretch, killing Houston, and their chance to get their first title since Phi Slamma Jamma. The Gators emerge victorious. Take real quick on the NCAA national champions. And I think I want to give credit where credit is due. This is courtesy of Frank, who works with you in our sales department.
Okay, he didn't lay this one on me, but go ahead.
NCAA trophies are boring. We need to spice them up, okay? It's a block of wood. It's a plaque. You're giving them a plaque. When you've got Major League Baseball's you got the Stanley Cup, you've got the Lombardis, it needs to have, even the college football national championship trophy is better than what they're handing out at the end of the tournament.
Here is my test. Is it a good trophy or not? The one time I saw a trophy, you were right there, Danger. We're sitting there doing our show at the PGA Championship and walking through the media. So I'm like, whoa.
Larry O'Brien.
That's Larry O'Brien. And it's gleaming and it's big. And
great trophy.
And there's no doubt about it. You know it instantly. What is that? Oh, my gosh. It's not. When the Stanley Cup, to me, that's
the greatest of all trophies.
The greatest of all trophies. Yes. And the story was that they brought in the Larry O'Brien trophy and to shoot some promos there for the upcoming on ABC and ESPN, and they brought it around town. And sure enough, I get home, and there is my brother posing with the Larry. Look, he's a firefighter. They brought it over there. Not that I'm jealous. Give it to the first responders first.
Yeah. No, we saw that. We saw the Heisman Trophy up close. That made the rounds. Remember, we saw the Heisman Trophy back in the day at the car dealership, right?
That's true.
I mean, what you're giving them for winning March Madness is a block of wood. It's a plaque. Can we get them a proper trophy for winning the national championship in college basketball?
Rob Manfred once called the Major League Baseball trophy a piece of metal.
That's respectful.
That was just so
That's respectful.
That's probably number 4 on the list. It for me would probably go, Danger, the Stanley Cup, Lombardi, Larry O'Brien, whatever we call the Major League Baseball trophy. And Frank is spot on there. And
where do you put the college football playoff trophy? Because that's different.
Oh, it's a little crystal, right?
Yeah. No, it's not anymore. It's like a pillar. It you know what I'm saying? Like a gold.
Yep,
the crystal was, I think they did during the BCS. I want to say is when they did the crystal football. But now I think it's like more like a pillar. It's like a gold. It's not like the Lombardi, but you could see, all right, they're trying to do something similar that's easy to pass around and you can carry it and hold it, and it's not a plaque that looks like it belongs in a high school.
The plaque, it's
high school trophy case.
Jim Boeheim coming off the plane, that was, what was it, 22 years ago today, and he's carrying the plaque.
Yeah.
It's the same darn plaque.
Yes. Yeah. We need to up the game there. If you've got all this money coming in, let's get a proper trophy for those young men and young women for what it's worth. It looks like it belongs in a high school trophy case. We need to do better. It needs to be a better trophy.
The Wanamaker. Is that the best trophy in golf? I don't even know. What do they get for the Masters?
The green jacket.
Well, the green jacket.
The green jacket is iconic, but it's not a trophy.
It's not a trophy.
It's the green jacket. The Wanamaker. Yeah, I think it's the Wanamaker.
The Wanamaker.
Is it the Wanamaker or the Claret Jug? I'm going Wanamaker. Wanamaker's more impressive. Claret Jug, yeah, okay. Wanamaker, I think, is the most impressive in golf. The green jacket isn't even a trophy. It's a jacket. It's 4th on the list.
You can't take it home. It has to stay there.
Yeah. You can't even, you get to enjoy it for what, a day?
You're going to put that back on.
You soil it and then you hang it in your locker and it has to sit there for another year? Get out of here with that.
It is the Masters, Mike Danger.
Well, congratulations to Florida. And was it Florida winning as much as it was Houston kind of giving it away at the end? It was sloppy.
Yeah. First half was a rough watch. You say, oh, that's great defense.
All defense.
Yeah.
All defense. Low scoring. All defense. Kind of what we thought it would be. And it really, a lot of this tournament was kind of what we thought it would be. It was top heavy. And the good defensive teams stood tall. And Florida, when it's all said and done. That was your team that you picked. You got it right, Gino.
I got it right. No one cares.
No one cares.
No one cares.
Nobody cares. No parade for Gino.
Technically, Calvin Booth wasn't fired. They're just not going to extend his contract.
Oh.
What does it matter? Like, you cannot make any more decisions. You can show up and watch.
Is he still there? So
he's still there.
Okay. So he's still a part of the organization, but they're not going to extend him beyond this year.
That's it. No, that's dysfunctional to me.
Totally.
What are you doing? Like, that guy's going to be a good influence? Like, how does that normally work out when you're like, hey, we're moving on from you, but, you could stick around for a month or two?
Somebody mentioned this in my feed, and I can't unsee it now because I wasn't somebody who was like really like, oh, yeah, Booth is somebody that, Calvin Booth is somebody that I could recognize, I could pick out in a crowd of people. Never, ever, ever. But somebody, now that his picture's everywhere on our news feeds today, somebody pointed out he looks like a combination of Nick Cage and Mike Brown, and I can't unsee it. He looks like Nick Cage and Mike Brown had a love child, and that's Calvin Booth.
Okay.
I can't unsee it.
Coaches that end up winning a championship. We cited the Robinson with the Devils. Peter writing in. You can write to us, our handle, The Fan Rochester. Steve Fisher won a championship at Michigan in 1989 when Bo Schembechler fired Bill Frieder right before March Madness. That's correct, and you talk to any Michigan fan, they'll, those were the days. Michigan needs to be coached by a Michigan man.
Yeah, sure. I just think it's a little unorthodox. But maybe, what do you have to lose? Maybe Adelman can galvanize these guys, bring them together, and in the postseason, they have another gear. Jokic is the guy that I don't think there's any quit in that guy's game. Like if they don't make it, it's not going to be because of Jokic. If they don't win it, it's not going to be because Jokic had an off night.
However, like if you're that locker room right now, you've already won the championship. Some of those guys in that locker room, no one's going to feel the burden if they lose. Your excuse has been built in.
For the guys that were on Team Malone. If the locker room was as divided as we're led to believe it was, and there are guys in there that like the coach, and there are guys in there that were siding with the GM. If you were Team Malone, you have your built-in excuse. Well, what do you expect? We got this Adelman guy, and that's not really what we wanted. Will be interesting to see, as they say in dodgeball. Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it plays out. That's the big story from today. The story that kind of broke this afternoon. We're like, well, we had to do like a triple take. Like, what?
I thought it was fascinating hearing Matt Perino talk about how all of a sudden his name is basically linked to fake news, which if you missed it,
this happened to us during the football season with Matt Milano. Remember that?
Right. Like it's the postseason, and some joker from Baltimore said that Matt Milano went on the Fan Rochester and said all these negative things about Lamar Jackson, which is kind of funny on a few levels. Number one,
Matt Milano doesn't speak.
No,
we've never heard him speak.
No. And honestly, if you wanted to hear the audio, just download the Odyssey app. 72 hours, you can go back in time, listen to it at any point. Matt Perino in a mailbag was just asked the simple question.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt. It's me, Matt Milano. I just wanted to say that this is how I speak. This is how I sound when I talk. I'm Matt Milano. You would never know because I've never spoken to anybody ever.
Sorry. Go ahead.
I don't think Matt Milano actually even speaks. I think he just kind of looks at things and
glares.
Grunts. Yeah, grunts.
Straight up caveman.
Yeah, right. About Matt Perino. He is just doing a simple mailbag. The mailbag. Everybody's always done a mailbag, right? And in the mailbag, hey, the Bills, if they were going to trade for a wide receiver, who might be available? And you go down the list. And the list is simple, Danger. Guys that are going to need to be paid at some point. And Matt Perino just says, Chris Olave wondering what's going on there, and Jordan Addison knowing that the Vikings have already paid a wide receiver. Somehow this gets morphed to Matt Perino reporting that the Buffalo Bills are talking to the Minnesota Vikings about Jordan Addison. Is not true.
Yeah. Be fun if it happened, but yeah, not true.
But to the point, Danger, where I'm there with our buddy Mike Underwood today. He's like, hey, have you seen these Jordan Addison to Buffalo rumors, and they're taking action on this? I'm like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
I had no idea.
Well, AI is great. I mean, you can use it to do a lot of things, and it's an unbelievable tool, but it's also wrong a lot of times. And if you use it as an aggregator, or if you ask it for something and it'll aggregate a bunch of things that are out there on the web that aren't necessarily true, you always almost have to double check what it's spitting out. And I have a feeling a lot of people are using it to their benefit for their social feeds and whatever, what have you. And it's just pulling inaccurate information. Perino didn't report anything. He just gave you a list of guys who could be on expiring deals and could be available via trade, not just to the Bills, but to anybody. It's funny. And Perino's line, miss me with the next mailbag. Yeah, no more mailbags. I don't want to do them anymore. This is too much.
Can you imagine if you and I did a mailbag? Actually.
Yeah, you and I should do a mailbag, Gino. Good idea.
Well, I think you should be a columnist, Mike Danger.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. What do you think? You could just sit down.
Do I have any sort of journalistic integrity at all? No.
You could opine on anything you wanted to.
Wow. Well, if I had that kind of freedom, what would I opine on first? I mean, there's so many things I want to opine on that I just don't know where I would start.
The history of the Rochester Red Wings opening day. Opining.
We're going to let Mike Leone, head coach of the Rochester Americans, opine on his team's last few games and give us a little preview of what's ahead for the playoff-bound Amerks. He stops by every week at this time. Michael Leone, next on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports
Buffalo Sabres still alive. They are not yet eliminated, although that could change tonight with a loss to Carolina. Lindy Ruff, though, wants his team to continue to fight.
I think it means a lot because we're working on our game. I've said.
They've raised the bar on Rochester Sports Talk. You're in the Sports Bar with Danger and